Okay, so continuing, I figured out how to make the font bigger. It's in the edit menu. So you go edit, preferences down there at the bottom to do that. And there's some other stuff you can set in here. And this is probably bigger than we need, but we'll see. I think it'll just look better on the video. Okay, one thing I forgot to do is I need to put another meta character, meta element, pardon me, into the head of my document. And whoops, thought I had that baby. Crap. Hold on a second. Okay, sorry about that. So I'm continuing here on my section template. I want to add the viewport tag in. It's a meta element, so meta name viewport content width equals device dash width. Initial scale equals 1, maximum scale equals 1. That's just some code that makes it work better when you have a small form factor device. And I'm not going to worry about that right now. I just want to get that in the template. So I forgot to do that, so just want to add that to the template and save to page. We got our language in there. Good. That's a problem for me when I work with my Norse stuff. Okay, I thought we'd just go ahead and maybe play with a little bit of JavaScript here. And so basically what we use in DOM programming is we create elements in the page that we can grab with the code and manipulate. So I'm going to come down here to the main and create a div and give it an ID of greeting. And then we'll play with this a bit. Okay, so right now there's nothing in this div. I'll go ahead and save the page, pop over here into design view. Again, that's all I have. There's no content there for that div. And then let's go look at our JavaScript here. So again, one of the things we have to remember here is that greeting. That's going to be important. So I'm going to go to my JavaScript page here, and I'm going to start by document dot get element by ID. You're going to use this all the time. And notice the way the camel case works there. It's important that you get it spelled correctly. One problem with JavaScript is it doesn't have a lot of really good response. So the ID is your friend here. Okay, so document get element by ID. The name of the element that we want to get is greeting. And so that's going to create a handle on that. Now, really, I could just go ahead and write this in a functional style where I don't have a variable, but I think that'd be confusing to most people. So let's do this one step at a time. So I'm going to say var greetElem equals document.getElementById greeting. Okay, so what that's going to do is it's going to grab hold of the greeting element and create a reference to it. The reference will be a variable called greetElem, and then whoops, we don't want to, let's respell that there. There we go. So we want to use the camel case. Get in the habit of always doing that. Alright, now I can take the greetElem and say dot inner HTML equals hello, Joe, what do you know? Which is something from like the 40s, I think. Okay, alright, so I have some JavaScript, Control S to save it. Notice that the ID kind of gives me IntelliSense and says no syntax errors, so this should be okay. Alright, so now I'm going to pop back on over to my section template here. And so this is ClientJS. The code I put is in ClientJS. And let me explain something. The way that the code gets rendered when you write it this way is as the page loads. So what will happen is it'll start loading the page as it comes down from the server, and it'll go down through these lines, and then when it hits line 7, it'll go ahead and open the ClientJS. It'll download that and start to render it. The problem with that is it hasn't finished rendering the page. This stuff that's below my cursor, below line 7 here, doesn't exist yet. So when my code runs and tries to find greeting, which is down here, and it doesn't exist, it ain't going to work. Now a quick fix for this is for me to move the script block down so that it's below the end of the page. So the page will be rendered before the script block is rendered. And that's what we're going to do this time, but that's not the best solution. I'll show you the best solution eventually. So I'm going to copy this, delete it real quickly, pop down here. I still want it to be in the body of the page. Honestly, I'm not real sure about all that. Might work if you put it right outside the body too, but I generally put it in the body. Save the page again. And you know what? I should have shown you the page didn't work, but because now it probably will. So I'm going to go ahead. Now I think you can do this in live view, which I don't use all that often. So here we go. The code actually ran. Hello Joe, what do you know? Okay. The other way, which is going to be sometimes better to check your page, is to do the preview. And up here you see that like world icon. If you pop that down, you want to populate this with 2 or 3 different browsers so you can test them out. So I'm going to go to Chrome now. And there you go. Hello Joe, what do you know? Let me show you something real quick here. When we go to our page source, you can see that it doesn't have the hello Joe, what do you know? So basically, let's go back into Dreamweaver here. I'll close this. I got some other stuff up here. Don't worry about it. It's not germane to this. So basically, what this says is go ahead and find an element that has an ID of greeting and assign it as a reference variable to a variable called getElem. And then getElem has a inner HTML property, that's an attribute, and we can set that. So hello Joe, what do you know? Okay. Now, to make this interesting, let's go ahead and modify this. I want to show you a technique I can do. I can put markup in here. So that's why it's called inner HTML. There's another property called inner text which cannot have markup. This is a pretty dangerous technique because you have to be careful. It's possible, like for instance, if I forgot to put this closing H1 tag here, I would create markup that was imbalanced and it wouldn't be valid anymore. And the JavaScript code absolutely will not work if your HTML markup is off. So some people would say this is not the right way to do this. Instead, you should go through a different approach where you actually create an element and append it to the document object. But and I'll show you that later on. But this is good for now if we're careful. Okay. So kind of think about what's going to happen now when we render our page. I'm going to go on back here. And again, I'll hit the live view. And of course, I don't know how it works. There we go. And so now you can see that the hello Joe, what do you know, is actually in the H1 style heading. Okay. So again, I've got this to work because I put the script block down here at the bottom so that it would render the page so that the greeting element existed when the code ran so it could find it. If I put it back up there real quick at the top, I think I want to get out of the, split view is okay, but we want to get rid of the live view there. So I'll put it up at the top. Now really I want this to be in the top normally, okay? And I mean in the head of this document. So I'll paste that back in, Control S to save, click back on the live view, and now it doesn't work. Okay, and there's no error or anything, right? Let's even take a look at that in Dreamweaver here real quick. Get rid of the live. Where's my preview button here? Oops, right there. We'll go back to Chrome because we looked at it in Chrome. So again, you can see it's not working. Okay, so the reason it's not working is, like I said, when it renders the page, it renders the code first, and the stuff that the code is referring to is not working. So what we want to do is we want to tell it to not run the code until the page is rendered. And so there's an easy way to do that in JavaScript. So we'll come on in. And now if you think about it, I want all of this code to run when the page loads, right? So I'm going to put a wrapper around it here. So I'm going to say window dot, let's see, is that window dot onload? I think, yeah, let's see. I always get confused about if this is a window or the document. So yeah, I'm getting old and I don't remember everything. So window onload equals function, and there's no parameters, so we just have an empty parameter list. And then, just like in the other languages you've learned, functions use blocks that are delimited just like this. So we'll go ahead. And so now what this says is, whoops, got the wrong thing in there. There we go. So now what's going to happen is this says go ahead and run this anonymous function, and I don't really like to have that space in there, so I'll get rid of that. It's just a personal thing. Control S to save. So what this does is it says run this function, which is anonymous, there's no name there, and wait until the page loads before you do it. So that's what the window onload should do for us. If I'm wrong, it's document onload, but I think I remembered how to do it this time. Okay, so again, I'm going to go to live view, and yes, sure enough, it's working. So you can see, hello Joe, what do you know? And now I have the script where I want it in the head of the document. A couple of quick rules: no JavaScript anywhere except in an external file. No CS anywhere except in an external file. Okay, that's going to be one of Tom's Nazi rules that he's going to really nail you on. You might be in an industry situation where they might ask you to put CS in the head of the document, and unfortunately all of the W3 schools examples put all the code and the CSS in the documents like that because it's easier to see what the example does. That's a pedagogical thing. Best practice is to separate the markup from the code and from the style. So we're not going to do any of that inline JavaScript or inline style stuff. Okay? You have been warned. Alrighty.